Dear students, we arrived to the 8th part of the video series dealing with the public balance and government debt. The title of this video is Variation of the Government Debt from one year to another, and we are going to analyze this problem through a calculation example by using the formulas that I have already showed you during the previous videos. So, the calculation example will refer to the modeling of factors influencing the gross government debt. The exercise sounds as follows. There is a country whose nominal GDP in the last year was 38,355 billion forints. The government debt as a percentage of the GDP in the same period, so last year, was 75%. Within the total government debt, 20% was denominated in foreign currency. The average interest rate of the government debt in national currency was 2.5%, while the average interest rate of the foreign debt was 1.5%. Furthermore, we know that the national currency has weakened 3% this year. The primary balance showed 200 billion foreign surplus, while no other factors were influencing the government debt, either increasing or decreasing it in the given time period. This year the economic growth rate was 5%, while the inflation rate was 3%. By knowing the above information, we need to answer three questions. First, what is the nominal GDP of this year? Second, what is the rate of the primary balance compared to the GDP this year? And finally, what is the rate of the government debt compared to the GDP? This is basically the main question. The previous two is only necessary to calculate the last one. At first sight, this exercise can sound a little bit complicated. However, if you have carefully listened to the previous videos, you shall recognize all the data within the text, and you are also able to put these numbers to the formula that we have to use. At first, let's collect the data from the text and use the markings that we already know. We know the nominal GDP of last year, that is epsilon t minus 1, which is 38,355 billion forints. We also know the government debt as a percentage of the GDP from last year, that is dt minus 1, which is 0.75 or 75%. Within the total amount of government debt, 20% was denominated in foreign currency. We have used AT-1 to mark the rate of the government debt in foreign currency in the previous time period, which is, according to the text, 0.2. IIDT-1 refer to the average interest rate of the government debt in national currency at the end of the previous time period, which is now 2.5% or 0.025. Just to repeat, I refers to interest, ID refers to internal debt, and T-1 refers to the last year. On the other hand, the average interest rate of the government debt in foreign currency was 1.5%, which we will mark with I xd T-1. I is again interest, xd is external debt, and T-1 refers to the last year. So this was 1.5% or 0.015. The national currency has weakened 3%. This is epsilon t, which is 0.03. The primary balance of this year will be marked by PBT, which is 200 billion forints. G refers to the economic growth rate, which was this year 5% or 0.05, and P will refer to the inflation rate, which was 3% or 0.03. Above these, the text says that there were no other factors influencing the government debt, which we mark by ODT, and ODT equals 0. It also means that lowercase ODT, so the other influencing factors as a percent of the GDP, will also equal 0, since if the numerator is 0, then no matter what is the value of the nominal GDP, the quotient will be 0. Now we have collected all the data that we will be using, and we can start to solve the exercise. The first question was to determine the nominal GDP of this year. This is a very simple task. We need the nominal GDP of last year, and we also know that the nominal GDP will increase according to the joint impact of the economic growth and inflation. The formula that we have used before is epsilon t, so the nominal GDP of the given period, equals to 1 plus GT, the economic growth rate of this year, multiplied by 1 plus PT, the inflation rate of this year, multiplied by epsilon t minus 1, the nominal GDP of last year. Substituting the data from the exercise, we can see that it is 1.05 multiplied by 1.03 multiplied by 38,355 billion forints. The result of the multiplication will be 41,481 billion forints, which is epsilon t, or the nominal GDP of this year. The next task is to determine the primary balance as a percentage of the GDP. We have marked this with lowercase pbt, and for this we will need the pbt and the epsilon t, so the primary balance of this year and the nominal GDP of this year. According to the formula, lowercase pbt equals pbt over epsilon t. This is very easy and simple. So 200 billion forints over 41,481 billion forints, that is 0.0048. If we want to give this number as a percentage, that will be 0.5% after a small rounding. Usually we give the ratio of the primary balance rounded to the first decimal place. And finally, our main question, the dynamics of the government debt. Where will the ratio of the government debt compared to the GDP move? For this, let's determine the gross government debt as a percentage of the GDP. As you may remember, for this we have been using the following formula in the previous videos. Lowercase dt, which is the government debt rate itself, equals 1 minus a t minus 1 multiplied by 1 plus I dt minus 1 plus a t minus 1 multiplied by 1 plus I x dt minus 1 multiplied by 1 plus epsilon t, this is the numerator, divided by 1 plus gt multiplied by 1 plus pt as the denominator, and this is multiplied by dt minus 1 minus pbt and minus odt. There is indeed a lot of information, however by now you should be able to recognize the markings, the content, and also where you can find this information within the text. After that, this exercise is only substituting the right numbers to the right places. 1 minus a t minus 1 equals 1 minus 0.2, which is 0.8. 0.8 means that 80% of the total government debt is in national currency, and obviously the debt rate will increase this year by the interest rates. The interest rate of the debt in national currency is 2.5%. According to the formula, it is 1 plus 2.5%, which is 1.025. 0.8 multiplied by 1.025 is the result of the first two brackets, plus a t minus 1 multiplied by 1 plus I x d t minus 1 multiplied by 1 plus epsilon t, which is 0.2 multiplied by 1 plus 0.015 multiplied by 1 plus 0.03. So in this case, the rate of the government debt in foreign currency appears, which was 20%. The interest rate varied for the debt in foreign currency, which was 1.5%, and the nominal depreciation rate of the national currency, which showed 3% weakening. If it is a positive number, it means that the exchange rate has increased, and according to the general exchange rate explanation, it means weakening. So by multiplying these three indicators, we can calculate the increase of the government debt denominated in foreign currency. It is divided by 1 plus gt multiplied by 1 plus pt, which is 1 plus 0.05 multiplied by 1 plus 0.03. The whole fraction is multiplied by 0.75, the government debt as a percentage of GDP from last year, and finally we subtract 0.5%, the primary public balance ratio of this year, and if there were any other factors that influence the government debt, it also had to be subtracted. These other factors could be, for example, privatization, one-time revenues or expenditures, and so on. However, in this exercise, these were considered as zero. So this is the method that you need to follow, and if we calculate the result, it will be 0.7865. We will have to round up this result, and usually when we are dealing with the government debt rate, we need to round to the first decimal place. So we can say that the rate of the government debt compared to the GDP this year is 70.9%, which shows a decline compared to the last year's data, which was 75%. So I hope you were able to follow the calculation example, and now you understand how to solve these kind of exercises and how to interpret the results. And finally, there is one more thing that I would like to show you. It is very practical to program these kind of exercises in Excel. When we are using this, we only have to give in the indicators of the red cells, and the rest of it are calculated values according to those formulas that we already know. These formulas can be programmed in Excel tables, so after simply typing in the data that we already know, like the GDP from last year, which is 38,355, the government debt rate of last year, which is 75%, the rate of government debt in foreign currency, which was 20%, and so on, then the calculated values of the green cells appear, like the GDP of this year, which is 41,481, lowercase ODT, which was in our case 0, the primary balance as a percentage of GDP, and of course the rate of the government debt, which is the main question. So obviously it makes the exercise solving very easy. However, it is very important to also know and understand the calculation and solving methodology of the exercise. Thank you for the attention.